Hello, this is Joe from Nerd in Korea. We are looking today at a budget deck, another one. Grolnok the Omnivore, Hop into the Grave, I'm calling this one. I had quite a time getting this done. It's actually nighttime. I usually do these early afternoon. My son is here, so if you hear random noises, that's an 8-year-old making noise. But anyway, here I go. So Grolnok the Omnivore, he is 2 green-blue, so Simic, his color identity is Simic, and whenever a frog you control attacks, mill 3 cards, okay, for each frog, right? This isn't like if you attack with 5 frogs, it was 1 trigger. This is 1 per frog, right? So it'd be 15 cards. Stacks up pretty quick. Sounds like maybe a bad idea, but we're gonna keep reading. Whenever a permanent card is put into your graveyard from your library, exile it with a crow counter on it. You may play lands and cast spells from among cards you own in exile with crow counters on them. So this is just like, not quite card draw, but basically the same thing. Card draw except everyone can see. And it doesn't impact your hand limit. So really powerful, right? Again, this is a frog Kindred commander, obviously, and as long as you can keep attacking with frogs, you can keep milling cards that is going to essentially be like card draw. Your kind of pseudo card draw, maybe. Not actually card draw, unfortunately, but yeah, it's some ways, again, you can have as many cards as you want in exile. You can have 7 cards in your hand, usually. So I think it's kind of better, but anyway. So this is a Graveyard Matters commander that subverts the normal mechanics of Graveyard Matters commanders. So usually the problem you have with a Graveyard Matters commander is that someone's going to have graveyard hate. They're going to like exile your graveyard or take out those important cards, and then your whole strategy kind of comes to a grinding halt immediately. Your deck is almost switched off as soon as you don't have a graveyard. This isn't about getting things out of your graveyard later. This immediately goes from your library to your graveyard, exile, straight to exile. There's no real intermediate steps, so it avoids a lot of things like if they play Tormod's Crypt or something and try to exile your graveyard. Sure, do that. It's a Graveyard Matters commander that doesn't care about the graveyard getting exiled, so I think that's really interesting. Yeah. Okay, so gonna do a quick breakdown on what this deck all has. So the deck, the main theme is of course Frog Kindred. That's our real cornerstone there. Subthemes, mill. Again, it doesn't really have to be mill. Just anything that will go straight from your library to your graveyard will trigger it. So there's actually quite a few different ways to do that, and we're going to look at some of those. Flash is great because you can just keep casting, really. You're going to have so many cards in exile with crow counters. As long as you have Flash, you can just keep, busting them out anytime. Flicker is going to be very useful as well. This is a little off the beaten path for this, but yeah. Not really tied directly into the main mechanic. +1/+1 counters. So a lot of our kind of win cons and strategies like that rely on this +1/+1 counters. My son's talking to me. I don't know what about. And finally, tokens. We can get a lot of tokens and fairly good tokens too. So yeah, we're going to see a pretty nice selection of ways to make tokens in this deck as well. The deck price comes in at $29.68, so this is under $30, which is something I'm always aiming for. I don't think I often get, actually, usually ends up being like 35 or 40 when I'm aiming for 30. So I was quite happy with this, and I think it came out really nicely too. The design objective, maximize advantage of exiling cards from your graveyard and Frog Kindred. So get the most out of Frog Kindred and your exiling, being able to exile out of your graveyard. I think we covered that pretty nicely. Anyway, this is determined using the TCG market price. The shipping cost on TCG, I've been made aware by a commenter, is pretty steep. It's probably actually cheaper to order in Card Kingdom. I made over 200 videos using the TCG market value, so kind of doesn't make sense to switch it up now. And anyway, as usual, I will post the deck list in the description. Part 1, Grolnok the Omnivore. So this is about the commander. I kind of talked about this a lot already. I feel kind of weird calling this part 1, but here we go. Okay, so once again, I think we already talked about him a fair bit, but as long as you can get frogs down and attacking, this will keep exiling cards with croak counters, right? You're going to be able to have your value engine going very easily just by putting frogs down. That's really all you need to do to get your value train going. Remember that you don't have to mill the cards by the frog attack trigger, right? You don't actually have to do the frog thing. Anytime a card goes straight from the library to the graveyard, mill in any way or any kind of effect that does the same thing, that counts, right? So there's a lot of different ways that we're going to use to take advantage of that. So, anywho, high synergy cards. Milliken is the first one. Milliken? Yeah, I should think Milliken. I said it weird like millimeter, but anyway. For 2 mana, it's a 0/1. You can tap it, mill a card, add a colorless. This is actually a super good card. I wanted to get this into a deck for a while. This is one I've always been like, oh, there's a correct deck to put this in. I just haven't found it yet. And here it is. So it's kind of exciting, really. Willowgeist. Okay. For 1 green, it's a 1/1 with trample. Sounds weird, but we're going to keep reading. Whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Willowgeist. And when it dies, you gain life equal to its power. Don't really care about that, but sure. Holy cow. Remember, every time you mill, or anything similar to mill, things are going to be leaving your graveyard. Willowgeist is going to get huge fast, okay? We also have effects that let us like take +1/+1 counters off of one thing and put double on another thing. I can't remember the frog's name right now. Is it Froghemoth? No, I think that's a different one. Anyway. And then, yeah, that one is just massive, right? So if this has 10 +1/+1 counters on it, that will get 20. It also has trample. So, oh boy. It's too bad it's not a frog. That's the one kind of like disappointing thing about that. 20-toed toad. 20-toed toad. I didn't say it out loud before. Okay, so this is 3 and a blue for a 3/3. Your maximum hand size is 20. Okay, first off, that's huge. In this deck, because you're going to have so many ways to cast spells from Exile, your hand size might get out of control. You don't want to end up just like discarding a bunch of things. Discarding from your hand will not go to Exile, right? It has to go from your library to your graveyard. So anything you discard is just going to your graveyard. And that's it, right? So, not ideal, but with a hand size of 20, you're pretty safe. And second, whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on 20-toed toad and draw a card. Still very hard to say, but okay, drawing a card is still very, very good. Card draw is always good, even in decks like this where you kind of don't worry about it as much as other decks, but still a nice thing to have, and that +1. Also, just having another attack trigger is big, right? You want to be attacking with frogs, probably at least 2 every turn. So if you attack with 2 frogs, and that's going to trigger double now. You want to get the 2 frog, I guess triple. 2 frog triggers, the mill, and then you're going to be putting a +1/+1 on this and drawing a card. Whoa. And whenever 20-toed toad attacks, you win the game if there are 20 or more counters on it. Or if you have 20 or more cards in hand. So if you just get all the cards in hand and pile them up, or pile up counters on them, 20 +1/+1 counters might sound like a lot. I think it is actually quite possible in this deck. I don't even have this listed as one of the win cons though, because I think it would still be tricky. I think we don't really have Proliferate. If you had Proliferate, then maybe you'd have something, but yeah. Finally, Mystic Snake. So 1 green, blue, blue. Oh, sorry, not finally. I shouldn't say that. Flash. And when it enters the battlefield, counter target spell. Creatures with flash in general, any permanent with flash in general in this deck is amazing because you're going to be able to have it sitting outside of in exile, and then you just throw it in whenever you want. Okay, I'm going to try and get my son to stop shouting. Hello, hello. Okay, there you go. Yeah, anyway, so you can counter a spell anytime with this. The kind of upside downside is that everyone's going to know you have that. It's an upside because if everyone knows that you have it, then they're probably just going to leave you alone. If you have that mana open, they're just going to like not mess with you. That's always great. We also have a lot of ways to like get mana dorks and things like that, and potentially just keep untapping them on other people's turns. Every untap step, you might just be untapping all your mana dorks. That'll give you the mana you need to have your Mystic Snake ready to go. So it can be really a big threat on the battlefield, which is lovely to have. Especially getting your opponents to just attack each other and leave you alone. That is just like the best ability. Okay, Doc Orlock, Grizzled Genius, the last one, the Chincha last one, as they'd say in, well, partly in Korea, but anyway. A green and a blue, so Simic for a 2/3, and it's a bear. Got a bear in our frog deck, hey. Anyway, spells you cast from your graveyard or from exile cost 2 less to cast. That's the one and only part we care about on this. We're not using plot, the other part is for plot, don't care. Cast from exile, it costs 2 less. Any card in exile, casting it from exile is 2 less. It doesn't care, it doesn't say creature, it doesn't say enchantment, it doesn't say whatever. It just says from exile to cheaper. So really this is just going to do everything you exile with your main ability. You're just going to be getting a pretty massive cost reduction. Most of the casting cost in this, I believe, is 2. So we've got things like Millikin, where you could just cast it for free if it's exiled. And we've got a lot of things that are like 3 mana or more, where you're probably going to just be paying the like 1 colored mana and be able to throw it straight into the battlefield. This will just like be a swarm of things coming in for you. Part 2, the plan. So these are the deck objectives. Here we go. Alright, so first of all, as usual, first objective, ramp. Then frogs, cast it all, win cons, okay? So ramp, we've got Poison Dart Frog. This is 1 and a green for a 1/1 with reach. Tap to add 1 mana of any color. Hey, good start. And pay 2, Poison Dart Frog gains Death Touch until end of turn. Okay, so having your reach blocker with Death Touch, paying 2 is not ideal. Also, it's a mana dork, so this feels very weird, but I think it still can be quite good. Remember, we've got a lot of untap effects in this as well. So yeah, if you're untapping it all the time, you can keep using it for mana or for defense. If you've got like, what is it called? Murkfiend Liege, I think? We'll have him untapping every time anyone untaps. Then you can keep him open for defense, or be able to like just go ahead and block with him and probably take something down because he has reach and death touch. Really, people are probably just going to leave you alone. Trail Tracker Scout. Okay, this is first of all a raccoon. Yeah. We've got a bear and a raccoon in our frog deck. This is shaped up. I like it. I like this. Anyway, 1 and a green for a 1/3. Higher toughness on a mana dork. I don't mind. And whenever you expend 8, return up to 1 target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So anytime expend just means you use 8 mana, right? So anytime you use 8 mana, you can just go ahead and take a permanent card out of your graveyard and put it back to your hand. Remember, anything that goes from the battlefield to your graveyard does not get exiled, so it's just going to stay in your graveyard like normal. So you are going to have plenty of use for this. It's definitely going to come up. It's especially, I like that it says just permanent cards, so something like Broker's Hideout, where you can play it. It's a land you can play and just search out the land, whatever color land you want or basic land you want. Then you can just keep playing that over and over with this. Play it, expend 8, play it again, expend 8. It keeps sacrificing itself, so you don't even have to worry about that part. But yeah, this is going in like all of my green decks now. I think if I pulled a copy of this last weekend. I was playing Bloomburrow with a friend, and got to get that in my my Chatterfang deck. Cliff Top Lookout. Okay, 2 and a green for a 1/2 with reach. A lot of frogs have reach, which is weird. Like if you look at this little plastic frog right here, you don't think reach. I guess their tongues. Their tongues are what does the reach, but anyway. When Cliff Top Lookout enters the battlefield, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay, so this is any land. Really nice that it's any land. It doesn't say go find a basic land. We've got lots of stuff that can do that. This is just going to get whatever land. Really nice RAM. Really nice RAM. I think it's actually a pretty big benefit. You think a tutor is better, but if it's tutor just for a basic land, I'd kind of rather have this in a lot of situations. Like, unless you're really hard up for mana fixing, in a 2-color deck, I think this is better. Clement, the Worrywart. Okay, Frog and a Druid too. So 1 Simic for a 3/3 Vigilance this time. So whenever him or another creature you control enters, return up to 1 target creature you control with lesser mana value to its owner's hand. Okay, so you're going to keep basically playing something and you can put something back in your hand. Play something, put something back in your hand. You can use this again. If you can set off ETB a bunch of times with this, that's great. Also, you have something like Millikin, where you pay 2 and then it comes in and, well, I guess it would have Summoning Sickness, so you couldn't tap it. But anyway, yeah, you're going to be able to get those ETBs at least, so that's something. Frogs you control have add green or blue. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells. So basically, as soon as this guy comes out, all of your creatures that you've exiled throughout the game, you're going to be able to just throw them in very rapidly, especially if Doc Orlok and him are on the battlefield. Oh boy, you don't need a whole lot of frogs to just like start throwing everything from Exile onto the board. The game gets real short then. Finally, Druid class. Oh, I almost lost the frog. Uh-oh. Finally, Druid class. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, gain 1 life. Sure. Yeah, okay. Again, this is enchantment for 1 and a green. We don't want it for that, obviously. What we want it for is level 2. Again, you pay 2 more and a green, so 3 more. And you level it up. You can only do that as a sorcery, though. You cannot do that on someone else's turn. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Okay. You're going to have just a pile of land probably at some point in Exile. You just need to get it into the battlefield. So this is like... I wish there were cheaper cards that did this. There are a few good, like Azula or something, but we don't want to drop like $6 on a card in a really budget deck, so we're not using that. If you're looking to make this not budget, that would be a good starting point. Frogs! Okay, so Sticky Tongue Sentinel for 2 and a green is a 3/3 with reach. Again, more reach. flyers are not going to have fun with this deck, that's for sure. And when Sticky Tongue Sentinel enters, return up to one target permanent you control to its owner's hand. Again, something back to hand, play it again, get your ETB. Hopefully. Again, it is target permanent, not target creature. Okay? So, yeah. There's a whole bunch of things where you're going to be able to like get extra value just by playing it again or recasting it. So, the fact that it's not limited to creatures is really nice. Long River Lurker. Okay. For 2 in a white, 2 in a blue is a 2/3 with ward 1, and other frogs you control have ward 1. People don't like ward. It's not the best, but as I always say, it's better than nothing, right? Even ward 1 might be enough for people to be like, nah, I'll target something else. If they have something that means that can't be countered, they can just ignore it, but still better than nothing, right? It's not great, it's not perfect, but whatever. When Long River Lurker enters the battlefield, the creatures you control can't be blocked, target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. So one creature is unblockable, right? That's an ETB you might want more than once, right? This is definitely a great thing if you're flickering. This is a great target for that, and also for things like if you're returning something to your hand just to play it again. This is something worth considering. Whenever that creature deals combat damage this turn, you may exile it. If you do, return to the battlefield under its owner's control. So it's going to hit, and then you can exile it and return to the battlefield. Again, hopefully ETB, and if it's not an ETB, you've attacked, you've exiled it and returned it again. It's untapped when it comes back, right? So if you want something open for blocking, that will do it. Froghemoth. Okay, yeah, I was confused about Froghemoth. Anyway, 3 green for a 4/4 trample haste. This is one of the most expensive cards, or mana-wise expensive cards in the deck. So whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile up to that many target cards from their graveyard. So again, however many damage it does, exile that many cards from their graveyard. Graveyard hate, always nice to see. Put a +1/+1 counter on Froghemoth for each creature card exiled this way. So he's going to get a pile of +1/+1 counters. You gain life for each non-creature card exiled this way. So he's either getting +1/+1 counters, or you're healing a very little bit. Getting 1 life is usually not going to make that big a difference, but hey, it's better than nothing. Dream Dew Entrancer. So 2 Simic, so green-blue, for a 3/4 with reach once again. I have reach. Anyway, yeah, okay. When Dream Dew Entrancer enters, tap up to 1 target creature and put 3 stun counters on it. 3 stun counters. 3. Oy. If you control that creature, draw 2 cards. We're going to have lots of ways to make tokens, like even little tokens you probably don't care about. Just tap down your own token, draw 2 cards. Really easy way to get 2 cards, or you have the flexibility of just like tapping down someone else's creature for what I guess 3 turns and change, right? Their next upkeep is the first one, so yeah, or 2 turns and change, I should say. But anyway, whoa, that's just mean. Yeah, it is 3 turns and change, right? I get. I'm thinking about it all backwards. Lily Splash Mentor. Okay, so 2 and green-blue. It is a 4/4 with reach, because we love reach. And you can pay 1 and Simic, so green-blue. Exile another target creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Activate only as a sorcery. Okay, you can activate this more than once each turn. It is not limited to once per turn. It is a sorcery. So it means you can't do it on other people's turns. which is disappointing because then you could use it like defensively, right? Someone's going to use target removal on something of yours, you just take it off the battlefield and then put it back. This is still really good for setting up all kinds of tricky stuff. Again, if you've got your like, what is the lookout called? I'm already spacing again. I space always. If you want to get your ramp, you can basically use it to keep dropping your ramp guy down to just keep getting lands out of your deck, and then putting them straight into the battlefield tapped. So it'll do some major work. This is also part of a win con. Cast it all. Okay, Leyline of Anticipation. This is, I said earlier, one of the main sub-themes in this is Flash. I think Flash is very important in this deck. And so for 2 blue, it is an enchantment. So if Leyline of Anticipation is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. This is a crazy ability. I wish they put it on enchantments more, but they don't. Why? I don't know. You may cast spells as though they had Flash. So if you start with this in your hand at the beginning of the game, you just hit all your stuff has Flash until someone like removes the enchantment, which I don't see anyone actually bothering to use target removal on this until you've got like a fairly sizable amount of things in exile, and then they're going to go, oh, that's a big problem. It might be too late by then. Doc Orlock, already talked about him. Paying 2 less. Again, Flash and cost reduction. Especially also with if you can tap your creatures for mana to cast more creatures, then you're just throwing everything into the battlefield all of a sudden, right? Especially if you can untap. We've got like Mercfiend or Mercfiend Liege, I think. If you're untapping all of your blue and green creatures every turn, you can just keep tapping them, casting all of these creatures again. It's getting a little complicated with like the number of cards you need to set this up, but it's quite a combo. Reflections of Ledjara, 4 and a blue for an enchantment. So when it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Choose frog. Choose frog. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, copy that spell. So basically it's always going to make a token copy of every frog you cast. Obviously, if they have the legendary, not a lot of frogs are legendary, so you're going to be able to get a lot of value out of this. It is, especially with things like the Poison Dart Frog, where he's a mana rock. You know, he's a mana dork. Your mana dorks, getting extras of those is always nice. Clement the Worrywart. Okay, that's the one I was trying to remember before. Again, basically almost convoke for your creatures. Creature convoke. But yeah. Pairing it with Doc Orlock and Leyline of Anticipation. Oh boy. Deranged Assistant. This is basically Milliken again. For a 1 and a blue, it's a 1/1. Tap to add, to mill a card, add a colorless. Milliken. It's Milliken, but it costs a blue as well. Win con number 1, commander damage. This deck is not set up for commander damage win. I'm going to be honest with you. It's possible it would not be my first choice. So, Grolnok, of course. Suspicious Bookcase. Again, pay 3, untap it. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Hey, good stuff. And finally, the 13th Doctor. For 1 green blue is a 2/2, and whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, like Exile, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And then, yeah, at the beginning of your end step, untap each creature you control with a counter on it. So you can just keep throwing these +1/+1 counters down every time you cast from Exile. You're going to be casting from Exile like constantly, so that's going to do a lot. A lot. So yeah. Getting Grolnok up to the point where he's at least like a 10/10 is not unreasonable. I'm not going to tell you you're going to get them up to like being a 21-21 with +1 counters. Probably looking at a 2-turn commander damage. But you can do that without anyone being able to block you, so it is so quite easy. Win con number 2, Raining Frogs. Okay, so what I've used to set this up is, first of all, Washout. I love this card. 3 and a blue, return all permanents of the color of your choice to their owner's hand. Choose a color you don't have, pretty much Mardu, right? Any Mardu colors, that's white, red, black, just kick them all off the board. Hopefully you've gotten at least most of someone's creatures off the board doing that, and then you can just like go in and knock them out pretty easily. Galloping Lizrog. This is the one I was trying to remember before, and I got switched with Froghemoth because I put them beside each other. My brain sucks. Anyway, 3 green blue for a 3/3 with trample. Sounds not good, right? But keep reading. So when Galloping Lizrog enters the battlefield, you may remove any number of target +1/+1 counters from among creatures you control. If you do, put twice that many +1/+1 counters on Galloping Lizrog. Whoa, right? Again, like I said, with the Geist, now I can't remember the guy. Is it Geist Caller? Anyway, the guy where he just keeps getting bigger as like cards leave your graveyard. He's just going to keep getting those +1/+1 counters. Just take all the +1 counters off of him, put them on, double the amount on this, and you probably got your win con right there, right? Also, he has trample, so that's extra not nice. And then Froghemoth. We already talked about Froghemoth, so I won't go over it again. But a great way to get a creature boosted up in power, and as his power increases, he can keep kicking more and more cards out of people's graveyards, which keeps making him bigger and bigger. So yeah, kind of like a Rolling Stone kind of thing. Win con number 3. So I'm calling this one Lockdown. This is really like setting up to win, I guess, more than the actual win itself. I'm assuming you're gonna be able to just have enough creatures on the battlefield to just go in and smack them and be done. This is really about making sure they can't block. So again, Reflections of Ledjara. You're making token copies every time you cast something is the important part. Splash Lasher. So this one we haven't talked about before. 3 and a blue for a 3/3 with Offspring. I really like Offspring. The band, but also the mechanic. For 1 and a blue. So as you cast the spell, you can make a 1/1 copy of it if you pay that extra 1 and a blue. It does get the casting cost up to 6, but 6 for 2 frogs in this deck is worth it. And with Reflections of Ledjara on the battlefield, it will not copy the token, unfortunately, but you will get another copy of Splash Lasher. So you'll have 3 of those. And when this creature enters the battlefield, tap up to 1 target creature and put a stun counter on it. So you're going to tap their creature, and you're going to make it so it can't untap. By putting a stun counter on, it won't untap. So they're going to spend a full turn being tapped down. So you basically have 2 attack or 2 full combats without them being able to block with that creature. With 3 creatures, okay? And then Dream Dew Entrancer. We already talked about this one. And yeah, so it's going to come in, going to make a copy, and then it's going to tap down the creatures for 3 turns. Alright, tap down and then 3 full turns. So basically 4 combats, you can have 2 things tapped down. Altogether, 5 creatures you can tap down and just like start hitting, right? Not hard to, hopefully you can win with that kind of advantage. Tapping down is also nice because you kind of open the door for everyone else. So if there's someone else is the problem player at the table, you can shut down their board and just let everyone go in and like mess them up, basically. Win con number 4. Finish them. So Rampant Frogantua 2 and a green for a 3/3 with trample. This gets insanely better. So it gets +10/+10 for each player who has lost lost the game. Oh, here we go. Okay. My son wants everyone to know that his Kirby has a storm on his head. Storm, yeah, that's good. Anyway, okay. Try not to destroy the fan on the way by. Yes, he's a tornado. Yeah, it makes him a tornado. That's fun. Anyway, yeah, okay, so this is one where I would he gets so strong just by other people getting knocked out of the game. You don't have to knock them out of the game, right? You don't have to do it. It's just if they're out, this is an advantage for you. So kind of just like later in the game it gets, the more this guy is just like terrifying. Especially in the game of Commander. You could have 2 players knocked out. So that's going to be a 23/23 frog with trample. Oi. Okay. Also, we're going to have Long River Lurker. Once again, when he enters the battlefield, you can make so this can't be blocked, and when it attacks, after that you can exile it, return to the battlefield, which is fine for him, because it's not like he has +1/+1 counters he's going to lose. He only cares if things have been, if players have lost the game. They're just going to lose the game if he gets exiled, right? Doesn't make a difference. Finally, Lily Splash Mentor, once again using his ability to like flicker something, basically put it back down. Do that to Long River Lurker and just keep making a Rampant Frogantua unblockable over and over. You won't have to do that many times before, like, remember, every player you knock out is another +10/+10 for Frogantua. Hello, hello, hello. Alright, so part 3, combos and tactics. I picked up some water. I take little breaks in between. My son told me I did a really good job getting the water. So hey, I'm on top of the world. Over the moon, whatever the expression is. Okay, so we're going to look at more on the sub-themes here. So, Sorda Mill, Lily Pad Village. So you can tap this land to add a add a colorless or add a blue, spend this mana only to cast a creature spell. Not too bad. And finally, you can pay a blue and tap it to Surveil 2. Activate only if a bird, frog, otter, or rat entered the battlefield under your control this turn. You're definitely going to be able to activate that very, very frequently. Again, Surveil does go straight from your library. You are looking at it, but it's considered still in your library, and you can put it straight into your graveyard, and it gives you the choice, right? It's really nice because, yeah, you can be like, do I want to draw this? Is this like an instant or a sorcery that I want to draw, or is it a permanent I just want to put it in my graveyard, exile, and be able to cast later? So that's really powerful in this deck, even more than Surveil usually is. Perpetual Timepiece. Again, tap, mill 2 cards, and you can pay 2, exile it, shuffle any number of target cards from your graveyard into your library. Again, you're not going to be able to, we are going to keep throwing a bunch of our, non-permanents into the graveyard and not exiling them. So you're going to have, on top of just regular gameplay where things are going to the graveyard, you're probably going to want to be able to put stuff back into your deck. Gossip's Talent. Whenever a creature you control enters, Surveil 1. So this is just going to be Surveil 1 all the time for 1 and a blue on this enchantment. So yeah, it's just really, really good. And whenever you attack, target attacking creature with power 3 or less can't be blocked this turn. This lets you attack with a frog, get your trigger, and you don't have to worry about getting it getting taken out. So really, really nice, right? And also you can flicker with it with the next level. Anyway, Taukasia's dig site? I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Tap for a colorless or pay 3 and tap to Surveil 1. Not ideal, but it is nice to have on a land. Really, that cost you 4, and tapping to surveil 1, not a great deal, but as an option, it's nice to have in this deck. And Rampant Frogantua, again, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may mill that many cards, you may put any number of land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped. Okay, so it's gonna mill just a whole bunch of cards and all the lands just go straight into the battlefield. Really helping you close that gap and probably get the win. If you just keep piling lands into the battlefield, there's a point where it's gonna they're gonna go, oh, I don't think I can keep up with this anymore. Once again, mill is great because we're just gonna keep all the, this is gonna put lands straight into the battlefield, and all the non-land permanents are getting exiled, and we can just cast them whenever we want. Sub-theme, Flash. Okay, Leyline of Anticipation we already talked about. Alchemist Refuge. Again, you can add 1 mana or colorless mana, add just 1 to your mana pool. I probably shouldn't say colorless because some things actually do specify colorless. And for a green and a blue, you can tap it to, you may cast non-land cards as though they had flash. This turn, sorry. This turn, it gives you 1 turn flash for everything. For 2 mana, but kind of 3 mana because it's on the land, right? Just very, very good. If you have Leyline of Anticipation, you don't need this, but we're not always going to have that, so it's nice to have a backup. Frilled Mystic. Again, this has flash on its own. 2 green, 2 blue for a 3/2 with flash, and when it enters the battlefield, counter target spell. Just like our snake before. Was it Mystic Snake? I feel like I'm getting Mystic from the wrong thing. But anyway, just basically just another counter spell attached to a creature that you can cast at any time. Very, very nice to have in this deck. Mocking Doppelganger. I almost didn't realize this had flash at first. 3 in a blue for... It's a shapeshifter, so you may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature an opponent controls, except it has other creatures with the same name as this creature are goaded, so they attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. So just keep doing this to people's commanders, right? Basically, it's like a weird version of removal, where you're either, I guess they're getting through and doing damage, or they're getting blocked and hopefully taken out. So you can really kind of abuse this, and particularly making sure that maybe some of those problem creatures aren't coming after you is already worth it. And getting a copy of whatever the problem creature is very, very good. This is, I gotta order some of these. My friend Ollie recommended this card for this deck. Thank you, Ollie. And yeah, wow, I gotta order these. Eaten by Piranhas. Okay, for it's 1 and a white for an enchantment aura with flash, and it enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a black skeleton creature with base power and toughness 1/1. I love doing this to, like, especially in Commander, do this to someone's commander, and just like most Commander decks are so built around the commander that if you take away all the commander's abilities, it's shut down. I think this is worse than just using removal on a commander. They're kind of just like not really able to do anything until like there's a board wipe and it goes right back to the command zone or something like that. So yeah, this is I think meaner than just, you know, straight up removal. Sub-theme, Flicker. Splash Portal. Okay, so this is a sorcery for 1 blue. Exile target creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control. Yeah. If that creature is a bird, frog, otter, or rat, draw a card. Again, you're probably going to be using this on a frog, so you're going to get a card draw out of it too. For 1 blue mana, that's not bad. Sky Skipper Duo. So when it enters, exile up to 1 target creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control to begin the next end step. This is a card that I actually got this in my draft last weekend. Was that last weekend? I have no idea. Yeah, I think so. No, wait. It was like Friday, but whatever. You don't care. Very nice little card here. This is one I see going up. It's like under $1 right now. I don't think it's going to stay there. Long River Lurker. I believe we talked about him already too. So yeah, being able to like make something unblockable and then exile it and then flicker it. Basically, it's really a nice combo. 3 Tree Scribe for 1 and a green. Whenever it or another creature you control leaves the battlefield without dying, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Oh, not too shabby, right? You can just keep flickering things, and every time you flicker, it's going to get, and you can put another +1/+1 down on a creature. So this is also great if you're going for a commander damage win con. This makes it much more feasible. And Lily Splash Mentor. We already talked about this one as well. But yeah, that exile another target creature you control, then return to the battlefield. It also gets a +1/+1 counter by doing that. That kind of leads, is kind of a bridge to our next one here. Our next sub-theme. +1/+1 counters. So the 13th Doctor. We did briefly talk about this one. So 1 green-blue for a 2/2, and whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Another way you're just going to be able to keep throwing these +1/+1 counters down. It's going to add up pretty quickly, and also untapping everything that has a +1/+1 counter on, or any other kind of counter on it. So there's I think only +1/+1 counters in this deck. I say stuff like that and then I immediately realize I'm wrong. Draneth Ruins. Okay, so it's a land. You can pay 2 and tap it to put 2 +1/+1 counters on target non-human creature that enters the battlefield this turn. There you go. So if you've got the 13th Doctor on this, you can just keep on tapping anything you want, any creature that enters at the beginning of your end step. Okay, and my son's shouting again. Fun. Froghemoth. Okay, we talked about this one as well. But yeah, he's going to keep getting his +1/+1 counters when he exiles creatures from your opponent's graveyards. Oak Hollow Village, another land. So yeah, paying 1 green and tap to put a +1/+1 counter on each frog, rabbit, raccoon, or squirrel you control to enter the battlefield this turn. So it is limited to ones that enter the battlefield this turn. You're going to have turns where you're able to do a whole bunch because you're casting from exile and you have Doc Warlock or something. So you're going to just cast a whole bunch and then you can do this and just put a pile of +1/+1 counters down. Oh boy. Galloping Lizrog, we talked about him already. He really gives this strategy, like, puts this into win con territory, just because you're going to be able to like take that mass of +1/+1 counters off of whatever you want and put double on him. So it is pretty crazy. Oh, I actually read this wrong the first time. It's any number of +1/+1 counters from among creatures you control. They don't all have to be off of one creature. If you've got your whole board with a bunch of creatures having +1/+1 counters, you can take all of them and just dump double on him. Whoa, that's even better. Yeah. Okay, onto our tokens now. Splash Lasher, again, we talked about him already. Offspring, really nice little ability there. He has an ETB that makes it worthwhile too. Anyway, Chalk Outline. So 3 and a green for an enchantment, and whenever 1 or more creature cards leave your graveyard, it's going to be a lot. create a 2/2 white and blue detective token, then investigate. So this is going to make a 2/2 detective token, and it's going to make a clue token that you can pay 2 and then sacrifice to draw a card. That's also great just to hold up mana so that you can cast things on other people's turns. Or even just make it look like you have counterspells or something when you don't. Reflections of Lit Jara. Again, choose frog and make an extra frog for every one. That's very nice. Desecrated Tome. So whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard. Again, it just says leave your graveyard. It doesn't say to where. It doesn't care. If it goes from your graveyard to exile, it counts. Create a 1/1 black bat flying creature token. Flying 1/1s maybe aren't great. Flying 1/1 tokens are great. That's just your defense settled. Especially you can get, it's not limited to like 1 per turn or anything, so you can just get a pile of these. Anytime you attack with frogs, you're probably going to be making quite a few of these. Croaking Counterpart. So 1 green-blue, that's Simic. Create a token that's a copy of target non-frog creature, except it's a 1/1 green frog. You're making a copy of something that isn't a frog. Probably someone else's commander, right? Hopefully. But yeah. You can get all kinds of useful ETBs and abilities by using this. It also has flashbacks, so if it does get milled into your graveyard, or if you just cast it like normal, for 3 green-blue, you can still use it, right? Still usable. Removal. Okay, this isn't a sub-theme, it's just something decks need to have. Masked Vandal. Again, it's on a creature. We like that in this deck. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, exile target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. Artifact enchantment, if you've got removal, those are the 2 things you really want. Exile is just so good as well. Yeah, Exile is going to get around all kinds of trouble with Indestructible. Beast Within. This is probably the most common one out of the whole deck, but anyway. Destroy target permanent is controlled, creates a 3/3 beast creature token. Yeah, sure. Wash Out. We actually talked about this one already, but just clearing the board of all of the color that you don't care about or you don't want there. Kind of pretty easy to get to win con from there. Bounce to their hand may not sound that impressive, but you're bouncing just all the permanents of the color to their hand. The idea that they're going to be able to recast everything like the next turn, really probably not, right? Especially because it's all one color. Even if they have, like, let's say you bounce all the black things back to their hand, even if they have like 6 black things, they're not going to have 6 black mana, right? Maybe if it's a mono black deck they will, but if it's like a dual color or tricolor deck, that's going to hold them up for like 2-3 turns if it doesn't end up just forcing them to discard a bunch of stuff. Okay, Polywallop, which is, I love the art and the name on this one. 3 and a green, this spell costs 1 less to cast for each frog you control. You've got 3 frogs, this is a 1 green, right? Target creature you control deals damage equal to twice its power to target creature you don't control. This is not fighting, right? They're not fighting, they're not exchanging damage. It's doing damage, it's not taking damage back. Very easily, especially when you're doing twice, very easily you'll end up just like using this as a creature removal. Doesn't need a really big creature even to do that, so yeah. Knocking out someone's commander, pretty easy with this one. Finally, Volatile Fault. Remember, we can exile lands and just play them anytime we want, so this is a great thing to have. We've also got Ghost Quarter in this deck, so you can tap it to add a colorless, pay 1 and sacrifice to destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. That player may search their library for basic land card and put it into the battlefield, then shuffle. You create a treasure token. You get a treasure token. You're losing a land, so but destroying that, like, Cabal coffers or something like that, it's worth it, right? Even losing a land, taking out just like a huge threat, getting the treasure token is more of like a side benefit, I think. Recursion-ish. Okay, you're gonna see why this isn't really about recursion. Well, part of it is, but part of it isn't. So we got Trail Tracker Scout. Again, use 8 mana, just get a permanent back. Hey. I gotta order more of those. Okay, Codex Shredder. You can tap it, target player mills a card, probably yourself. Or pay 5, sacrifice it, which is a lot. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand. The nice thing about that is that it does say target card. It doesn't care what kind of card it is, right? So if you really want to get that like instant or sorcery that you milled, you can get it. If you really want to get something else back, you can get it. Also, this is an ability, so you can activate it anytime. You can wait until someone else's turn to do it. So on someone else, the player before you, their end step, do this and just like use the mana that you've held up and made everyone scared with to get your whatever back. And it really is whatever, right? Mystic Sanctuary. Again, if you have 3 islands, when this comes in, you get to like just take whatever instant or sorcery, right? Yeah. Target instant or sorcery back to your hand from the graveyard. Since we're going to be milling a lot, this is going to be very worthwhile. Also, with a lot of our kind of ramp things, I would focus on getting islands just to be set up for this card, because this is going to be useful. Elixir of Immortality. So this is where it's not really recursion. For 1, it's an artifact. Pay 2, tap it, you gain 5 life, shuffle Elixir of Immortality and your graveyard into their owner's library. So again, just basically putting your whole graveyard and that's back into your library and then shuffle. So you kind of just hitting the reset button. One thing you might be worried about with this is like milling yourself out. You don't want to do that. This ensures that you're able to just keep like throwing everything back in whenever you want. Especially, you're going to have a whole big board probably. Board wipes are going to hit you pretty hard. So being able to just like pick everything up out of the graveyard, throw it back into the library and just keep going, it's going to be very, very nice. And I want to say Gaia's Blessing? Gaia's Blessing? I usually say Gaia, but this looks like Gaia. Anyway, 1 in the green. Target player shuffles up to 3 target cards from the graveyard into the library. Draw a card? Yeah, sure. So when Gaia's Blessing is put into the graveyard from the library, shuffle your graveyard into your library. So if you mill this card, it just automatically puts itself and everything else in the graveyard back into your library. So this is just like an automatic Elixir of Immortality that'll keep going off whenever it triggers. Basically, all of your mill worries, with self-mill decks, that is a serious concern because it's a vulnerability, and this just makes it disappear. It's pretty much like, oh, everything's fine now. If you get it in your hand and you cast it, you might actually have to get that back into your deck, which you could do with the Elixir of Immortality. So between the two of them, you can just keep going through your deck forever. So this has been Grolnok the Omnivore. Hop into the grave. Okay, take it easy.